I'm Michelle Boston.
And I'm Tequina Boston. Invite historical drama fans you know to subscribe to Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters wherever they enjoy their favorite podcast. Subscribers receive notifications about new episodes and bonus content.
Sign up for our newsletter on our webpage at michonbostongroup.com/Boston Sisters or on our Instagram bio link at Historical Drama Sisters and receive news and announcements about upcoming podcasts and historical drama activities. Enjoy the podcast, and thank you for listening. Welcome to Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters, where we talk about historical drama series and films as windows to the past and mirrors of the present. I'm Michonne Boston.
And I'm Tequina Boston. In this podcast, Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters welcomes back Sharon D. Johnson, script consultant to the masterpiece series The Forsytes, the new retelling of John Galsworthy's Forsyte Saga novels on PBS. Our conversation explores rebellious family artists, envious stockbroking brothers and cousins striving for material success, and characters inspired by a historical Black philanthropist and an Oxford scholar. What makes the pursuit of art and creativity a major disruption for a wealthy stockbroking family striving for material success? Does art have to possess commercial value to be a viable and respectable life choice? Must pragmatism win out over passion?
Tequina and I explore these questions with Sharon based on watching the first season of The Forsytes. Sharon D. Johnson joined us on Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters for several podcasts, including the Sanditon episodes, to talk about her work with the series inspired by Jane Austen's unfinished novel. Sharon's wrap-up for Sanditon's final season is the #1 Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters podcast. That's episode 32. Check it out.
In The Forsytes, Poldark writer-creator Debbie Horsfield reimagines the trials and triumphs of a wealthy Victorian stockbroking family in the years leading up to the original novels and stories gathered in author John Galsworthy's The Forsyte Saga. For those familiar with the 2002 masterpiece adaptation of Galsworthy's novels, The Forsytes could be considered a prequel. In the final decades of the 19th century, the Forsytes' generations find themselves torn between tradition, duty, reputation, and the personal pursuit of happiness and freedom.
The ensemble cast includes Francesca Annis as the formidable matriarch Anne, Stephen Moyer as Jolyon Forsyte Sr., Danny Griffin as the aspiring painter Joe Forsyte Jr., Tuppence Middleton as Joe's wife Frances Forsyte, and Eleanor Tomlinson as Louisa Byrne. Portraying the Forsyte family next door are Jack Davenport as James Forsyte, Joshua Orpin as Soames Forsyte, Millie Gibson as the aspiring ballerina Irene Heron, and Tom Durant Pritchard as Monty Darty. Josette Simon is Mrs. Ellen Parker Barrington, a wealthy heiress and friend of the Forsyte family. Jamie Flatters is architect Philip Bosany, and Owen Igiehon is cast as lawyer and Joe Forsyte's Oxford classmate Issac Cole. Susan Hampshire, who appeared in the 1967 BBC Forsyte Saga, plays Lady Carteret. Find out more on our webpage for this podcast. Welcome back, Sharon, to Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters.
Thank you for having me again.
So we're here today to talk about PBS Masterpieces' new release based on the John Galsworthy novels that have been gathered together as the Forsyte Saga, but this is The Forsytes. And it's my understanding that this version is a little bit of a prequel, as well as it kind of moves into the story of the Forsyte family as depicted in the novel, but gives us a little bit more backstory for the women. And as I watched this latest series, because I did see the 2002 as well, Michonne and I talked about there are a lot of themes in it. You know, you have the kind of the control versus freedom. You've got the pragmatism versus following your passion in life. You've got the kind of representation of duty versus love. But we're interested in what you see as the kind of dominant themes in this adaptation of the novel and what you see playing out between the characters and what they represent in terms of their values and the themes.
Well, of course, there is the ubiquitous theme in many of these historical dramas about the role of women and women who feel hindered by societal expectations. And now I understand why Freud directed his work at figuring out European malaise, because clearly it comes out in all of the productions. But the one that jumped out to me is um, that battle between responsibility and respectable work and artists and creative work. We see that, between a number of different character couples in the series three, I'm thinking. So you've got June and Philip Bossany, you've got Francis and young Jolyon, and you have Soames and Irene. And so each of those couples are dealing with this idea of, do you meet family and social expectation in your work, or do you listen to your passion, your heart, your soul, and where your talent lies, frankly, because the headbutting between the cousins, Psalms and Jolyon Jr., is all about who's more fit to take over the firm, right? And Psalms has this shark, perhaps, attitude, which isn't very thought forward. He doesn't think things through all the way. He's only thinking of commerce and profit. And you have Jolyon, who understands why you need commerce and for a business to be profitable, but he does not want to do that at the expense of humanity and responsibility to others. Um, and so that was the biggest sort of conflict that jumped out at me through this whole series.
It's interesting you say that because it makes me think of the pattern that people used to present. You know, you had the generation that strives to make the fortune so the next generation would continue it. But also, there is this dynamic where the generation that creates the fortune allows the next generation to pursue their dreams, but that's not the case with this
No,
family.
not with the Forsytes.
No, it's not. No, it's not. And at that time, um, investments were, there were a lot of industries that were um, building up at that time. And so you have a lot of wealthy people who wanted to invest in, mining for whatever, precious metals or um, railways was a big industry that was happening at that time and growing. And so, people wanted to get in on it when the getting was good. And it requires that longevity, that, passing the baton so that you have some sense of continuity, so that your investors feel um, that your company is stable and will continue on a certain path. Um, and yeah, that's interesting. What about if the next generation doesn't really want to do it? And so that is part of what the struggle was. We're going to lose the faith of our investors if, Jolyon, you keep playing around with paints and charcoals and what have you. So yeah, that's definitely a consideration.
And it's interesting too because I'm realizing this period of history, we're looking at the 1880s, the late 1880s. That is where you see the emergence of, well, not the emergence, because we've had it, of course, with the previous periods around slave trade and cotton and tobacco and sugar, but you see the industrial global economy emerging and some of the class tensions that's bringing in, because it's interesting to me, the Forsytes are very clear that they are superior in many ways, and yet they feel a little bit still that sense of, what would I say? That the aristocracy that somehow, they are still strivers in a way. And so watching how that influences who they marry or don't, or who, is pursuing them, because we know we have an aristocracy, from other historical dramas that were based in that period. Thinking about even the Buccaneers and Edith Wharton, the aristocracy wasn't always as wealthy as they used to be, and therefore did have to pursue that money piece. But I'm interested in how you see some of those same kinds of dynamics playing out today.
Well, it's interesting because using the Forsyte family as the example, art has an interesting place with the aristocracy. It's fine to collect it and to go on an excursion and enjoy it aesthetically, but the doing of it is not considered real work. And when you are a part of the aristocracy that built your way in instead of inherited your way in, certain things are considered real work and certain things are considered frivolous. We can still see that today across the pond here. And I think it crosses cultural and racial uh, boundaries. In that, if we take African Americans, for example, brought over here, trafficked basically over here as human chattel, basically having to build ourselves back up as a human group. So it's sort of the same industrial um, posture, in that you don't have the luxury to sit there and paint or sing, or even though singing was part of how messages were passed between the enslaved. Um, Singing was a way to rise above the brutality of work. Um, but we see that now where our families, working class families, no matter what uh, race, they want you to get a good job, right? And the
Yeah,
recent
yeah.
numbers that have, uh, I forget which senator and which congressperson were doing the numbers, um, but they were talking about how federal jobs were the primary source of financial stability for African Americans, particularly African American women. So, and that's why when
Mhm.
Doge started cutting all these things, you saw African American women um, losing their jobs. Uh, but I'm thinking back to the pandemic when the government shut down, and the two women, I'm blanking on their names, started uh, their cheesecake uh, franchise. And so you had a lot of women being ingenious and starting their own businesses during that time. And this time, someone is mentioning, I know Joy Reid has mentioned it, that that's the case here, even though the unemployment numbers are high. It's again women going to do things independently outside of the financial structure. Um, and so we still have this struggle, this battle between what is considered real work and what is considered leisure. You know, pursuing the arts can be expensive.
Yes.
Uh, although, now I don't know other states, but the Los Angeles Public Library rents musical instruments out. If you have a library card, you can borrow. So, you can kind of borrow a violin and start, playing around, self-teaching and things like that. And so it's changing, but I'm thinking in particular of um, Essence Magazine, the print version used to be called Back Talk. It's their editorial that appears on the very last page. And in 2000, I ghost wrote that column for Yolanda King, the daughter of Coretta and Martin King. And she wrote about facing that judgment from her own father. She wanted to act since she was a
Yes.
child. I think people might know the story that uh, her drama teacher was uh, uh, Julia Pretty Woman, the
Oh, Julia Roberts.
thank you,
Julia
Julia
Roberts,
Roberts.
yeah.
Julia Roberts' parents were Yolanda King's acting teacher. Um, and it wasn't until the family came and saw Yolanda in a play that, Martin kind of said, all right, maybe this is all right. Same thing with Langston Hughes. His father was tired of the racism in the US, moved to Mexico, started his business there, agricultural and other businesses. And when Langston went to Mexico to visit him, and he was like, Dad, I want to go to this school in New York. This was Columbia at the time. And, I want to write and I want to do this. And the father was like, no. And so Langston's working with him during the summer, gets a letter from, it might have been Charles Johnson, might have been Jessie Fawcett, that said, oh, we like your poem. We're going to publish it in this vehicle that we have. And here's, some money for the publication. And so it wasn't until his father saw, oh, you can make money doing what you want to do, that the father said, okay, I will pay for you to go to school in New York so you can be near these people. And so needing that tangible,
Product.
yes, and not even a guarantee, just an example. Can you support yourself on this? That's the battle. Are you going to be able to
Yeah.
support yourself on this? And the irony is, well, if you support me right now, I can produce enough work to generate income. So yeah, so
Yeah.
we still see it. We still see it
Yeah.
from the 1880s in England, jump across the pond, we see it here. Um, it's an ongoing thing, and many artists still don't get paid enough uh, to support themselves.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Well, parents always want to see the receipts. And as you were talking, what came to mind, Sharon, is how many of the 19th century emerging Black middle class were bankers, entrepreneurs, ministers, teachers. Um, we have Edmonia Lewis and we have Henry Ossawa Tanner, but we don't have a lot of visual
And
artists. We have a
and
few
Ira
dramatists.
Aldrich.
Ira
That's
Aldrich, but he
right.
had to go across the pond to England,
That's right. To be
right?
famous. That's right. To be successful. That's right.
But then we have the 20th century and with the Harlem Renaissance, and boom, you've got a whole generation now that are the shoulders that many young people and young artists will say that they're standing on today, those periods of the 20s and then the 40s and the 60s, et cetera. So, yeah, there's something about like the first generation has to establish that economic stability. And then that's the platform that hopefully others can get their wings and fly.
For African Americans, though, it feels like we always have to rebuild, because even with the Harlem Renaissance,
Yeah,
what W.E.B. Du Bois realized in hindsight is, oh, you can't build an artistic movement proving to a group of people that you are human while also asking that very group of people to support it. Because
right.
once the stock market crash hit, the money dried up and the movement was gone like that. And then you had the backlash of the, Black arts movement,
Yeah.
which still, in many ways, benefited from white guilt, white people supporting artists. And so we seem to have to rebuild every, 10, 20 years.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, there's always the Medici model that hasn't dried up yet, everyone's looking for a sponsor, a
that's right.
grant,
That's
Yeah.
right.
and
Well,
I think about what you said, Sharon, about it crosses different communities because I've even heard a teacher tell me that, he was teaching music to immigrant students, and he said, "I could not convince the parents that music was worth the time because they didn't see it as a way of bringing in income." And, how many doctors do we know who are closet musicians
yeah. Yeah, when I
or
was at
or
Children's
actors?
Hospital, there was even a string quartet of the doctors, and they were quite good too.
Or
Yeah.
doctors that are miserable. I don't wanna go to a doctor who didn't really wanna be a doctor,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we don't know that or lawyers that, we hear it all the time. So it's something deeper than just economics.
Yeah, exactly. So the Forsytes, this story kind of or this theme transcends class or economics.
You've been enjoying Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters, a podcast where we talk about historical drama films and series as windows to the past and mirrors of the present.
Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Share the excitement with your friends. Visit MichonneBostonGroup.com/Boston Sisters. Join the historical drama community by signing up for our e-newsletter so you'll never miss an update, future episodes, or exclusive bonus content.
Now, back to our fascinating conversation.
Let's talk about casting in the Forsyte Saga. Josette Simon plays Ellen Parker Barrington. Her character is based on a wealthy heiress and activist named Sarah Redmond. Tell us about how you found. Did you find that character? What was your piece in bringing Ellen Parker Barrington to life based on a story that is from a real life source?
All of these, characters were already created by the time I got the material, but there are 3 that stand out that are based on um, real historical people. And as you said, Ellen Parker Barrington is based on Sarah Parker Redmond, who was actually from the United States, married an Italian businessman. They weren't married long, 3 years maybe, and got most of her wealth that way. She was an activist, civil rights, social rights, women's rights, um, and brought that fire with her across the pond. Um, and the character, Ellen, I don't know if I'm spoiling anything, but she makes reference to that, not by name, but she says, I know if it weren't for the money that I got from my husband, many of you in this room would not even be paying attention to me. So she's very aware. She's someone who is wealthy and inherited it from her husband for the most part. But, she is still aware of the socioeconomic hierarchies um, across the world, probably, but definitely there. But she uses that very judiciously. And as an abolitionist or as the abolitionist and civil rights worker that her character is based on, she when she approaches these white women to ask for support for the House of Hope, I think is the name of the
The charity that they're working
building
on?
that she wants to create for they call them fallen women. So women who have, had children out of wedlock or what have you. Um, she plays on that, knowing the judgments about women, knowing the judgments about those women are the poor women who do that, right? Um, or who find themselves in those predicaments, ignoring the fact that usually it's a wealthy man that is the father or what have you. But she plays, without saying it, she plays on that, confronting them about their own prejudices without smacking them in the face with it, so to speak. So they feel it, but she smiles and looks firmly in the eye. And so you have no choice but to say, "Oh yes, I will help." Otherwise, you look like, you know, a judgmental racist. So yeah, um, and the other character,
Yeah, well, I was going to, Jolyon's classmate and
yeah.
colleague, Issac Cole, who's played by Owen Igiehon.
Uh, so he's based on an actual person, Christian Frederick Cole, who was from Sierra Leone. His parents died when he was young, and he was adopted by his uncle. He was the first Black graduate of Oxford, the first Black lawyer to practice in England. So a lot of firsts, which we all can relate to because we're still on that. It's 2026 and we're still, we still cling to the first this or the first that. And he died very young. I believe it was smallpox. He died at maybe 33.
Oh. Mm.
And so I'm not sure if from my research, there was no indication that he got married, but giving him a family in Forsytes plays into that thing about family dynasty and a different kind of family. So if there's another theme, that's the theme that also comes up is different kind of families. So you have the genealogical dynasties, you have the um, adoptive families, and as with Jolyon and Louisa, you have the family created in one's youth that you get to go back to care for. And so with Isaac, we see those themes in the Forsytes where he talks about, his wife Alicia is pregnant, and so that comes up with them the importance of creating family because he didn't know who his people were in the series. We get the sense that his wife is not from the same background. She knows who her family is. And we see that other theme of commerce versus principles in later episodes that comes up for Isaac. And so even with his character, um, we see he is involved in all of the themes of that series. And the other character, I'm not sure that this is why she was created, but the character of Hannah, who is Louisa's assistant, her assistant modiste. And I'm thinking of someone like Elizabeth Keckley.
Yeah, because we're in a dress shop now.
That's right. That's right. And so there were many Black women who, whether it's Anne Lowe or Elizabeth Keckley, many women did that. They dressed people, they designed clothing. And so that's what I think I appreciate. Usually PBS will do a separate publicity piece around that. Who are these people? Who are they based on? I remember they did that with Sanditon. I haven't seen it yet for the Forsytes, but yes, definitely Sarah Parker Redmond, Christian Cole, and Elizabeth Keckley. You can see how those histories are included. And I think that's a great thing about these remakes, that one way you can make them more contemporary is let's bring in some history. And so it's great to have these characters there. But yeah, they were all created uh, before me. So it is just my job to keep all the characters on par so that one doesn't get underserved.
And it doesn't look like a checkbox.
Right, right. And I think with Isaac, there's just some very subtle interactions with Jolyon Sr. that, uh and I wanna be careful how I say this because I don't want it to sound like he's being paternal to Isaac, but he cares about Isaac like Isaac is his son, you know?
Mm.
And so just making sure that we get the full humanity of all of these characters.
I also want to add to the list of dressmakers Mary Dickerson, who
Okay.
was just seen briefly in the HBO series The Gilded Age,
Yes.
in season 3, and she was in Newport, Rhode Island, activist woman, Black Women's Club movement, owned property, owned her own business, did very well in the
Yeah,
19th
opened
century.
daycare for women in the community and also
That's
trained other Black women in dress
inter
design and as well as dressmaking. She was a designer as well as a dressmaker.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. No,
So
that's
while yeah, so while Frances and June are being fitted for their dresses, Mary Dickerson was over in Newport doing the
that's right. The Kennedy
designing
not the Kennedys, but she's
the
earlier, I know, but
Yeah.
the Gilded Age women of all races,
yeah. Yeah.
Soames,
Mm.
and his insistence on controlling his wife, Irene, who
Yes.
wants to be a ballerina in this version of the Forsytes.
Yes.
Let's talk about Soames and Soames even as a archetype in some ways. We had an offline conversation about maybe he's, jealous of her
Mm.
ability to do something she loves and to be free with it and open with it. And
Mm.
sometimes I get that impression about what's going on with technology and creativity because there are some people who just don't get it or they feel, "Why don't I have that ability?" Or let me reduce it to something that just everybody can do. Find your inner artist, etcetera, and then you're not getting compensated for it. All the people who did all the hard work. There's a Psalms comparison here of what's going on. Talk about that a bit.
In certain scenes, you can even see it in Psalm's, facial reactions when he's dealing with his cousin, Jolyon. And in a way, not in a way, in a big way, that is what attracted him to Irene. The fact that she was so free and she was dancing. And then the respectability comes in where, no, no,
Mm.
dancers show too much body. We can't have that. That's not proper. And so I believe that he feels trapped by that. And he tries to get away with it by, I'm going to build this, my own home way out here. So it's a way to distance himself from all of that family expectation while still being controlling and domineering. It's a sign of immature men to be drawn to someone and then try to change them from what you were drawn to. It's like you don't know yourself, so you're trying to change me to make me what you are comfortable with, right? When really what you need to do is change yourself. You're the one who wants to be free, freer, but you have to continuously rein yourself in. And instead of working on yourself, you're taking it out on me, your spouse. Um, there is an episode where after a polo match, Psalms is the winner and he has the hard, cold gold trophy. The man on the team who lost, his wife comes to him with their newborn baby. And so the loser is holding his baby and Psalms is holding this cold, you know, golden cup. And he looks at the man with such, I wouldn't even say it was envy. It was pain. It was, it was I wish I had what you had, not in an envious way, but in a sorrowful way, right? Like, I wish I could be that free and soft and emotionally responsive to be able to do that, but I can't. So the reason I want a child is because it will keep up the legacy and I must have an heir. And this man is just like, I know I lost this stupid polo game, but this is, I don't care. This is my baby. Right. And so he is definitely, he's definitely stuck. He's definitely sad, but he does the um, problematic thing that we are seeing coming out in droves currently, and that is dominates his wife in a way that is not humane at all. And so that particular theme, all the themes really, it's very timely. And I do think that he envies his cousin, right? Because his cousin,
The painter.
that's right, Jolyon,
Yeah.
yeah. Because Jolyon has the strength to stand up for what he thinks is important, no matter who ostracizes him or disowns him or criticizes him. And Soames does not, right? And so all of his show of strength is false or warped or, dysfunctional. Whereas Jolyon just, his mistakes are honest and don't don't aggrieve his soul in a way, whereas Psalms is just tortured.
Yeah. And it's interesting too. Jolyon really allows people to be who they are. You see that in his relationship with his stepdaughter from the very beginning. You see it in his conversation with the architect that she becomes engaged to, Louisa's children. There's just this sense of Isaac, of really respecting people's humanity and not having to have them be who you need them to be. And Soames is the exact opposite. And it makes me think about the kinds of divisions we see in our culture between those groups and forces that feel that the only way they can feel free is to restrict everybody else's choices and freedoms, and those who understand that to be free means to allow people to be who they really are.
No, I agree. And again, the contemporary uh, parallel, I bring the 20th first century parallel to that is, again, the film Sinners. Yes, it was nominated for 16 Oscars. It got 4, so it only got 1/4 of what it was nominated for. But what it won said Best Picture. Akira Kurosawa says you can't be a director without learning to be a good screenwriter. And so you give Ryan Coogler screenwriter. That's basically saying the whole picture, right? You give the
Right.
cinematographer, the composer, right? And the lead actor who played two characters, right?
Should he have gotten 2
And
Oscars?
played
And they
2
did.
characters for real. 2
That's
for
right.
real. They
Real.
were
That's right.
definitely different people.
Right. That's right. That's right. And so those 4, and the fact that it was the first Black person to win original screenplay, the first woman and woman of color to win cinematography, the composer had won other awards, but the story of their friendship since college, and the actor that we have seen grow up literally from Sesame Street and then went back to Sesame Street, All My Children, The Wire, you know, uh, And then all the work he's done with Ryan Coogler, Fruitvale Station and et cetera, et cetera. That foursome, and in psychology, 4 is the number of completion or wholeness. And so a number of completion and wholeness. There are others. But those 4, to me, that spoke more than the film that actually did get Best Picture and Best Director, right? And those are the 2 that are the biggies. And to me, it was like, nope, the 4 that Sinners won says it all. And the fact that the group of winners is so diverse, right? But has such history together. To me, that's fabulous. And yeah, it for me, there is that parallel because, I think Jolyon even says it, and Luis is kind of constantly, I'm so sorry that what you've given up to be with us, and he's like, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And it is because he did that it brings everything together, the Forsytes and this new family. Again, I don't want to say any spoilers, but I don't know when you're going to put this up. But yeah, I think, and if I'm not mistaken, as in most things, Sinners was something that Ryan Coogler wanted to make earlier, but nobody wanted to do it, so he held it, kicked all butt with Black Panther, and now he's like, yeah, now we're doing this. And you're going to give me back my rights after 25 years. And so that also, we're talking about commerce and art. People were just, some people were mad. What, you're mad because he's smart to make this deal? Like with Oprah, when her show first started, and she negotiated, well, I have to own, 51% of the show. And they're like, yeah, okay. Because they didn't think anything was going to go, they just thought, another talk show. Uh-huh. And so there are moments when, and it usually happens where you follow your passion and then the money comes. It's not the other way around, right? So yeah, these parallels are, if you can look past the period, many people don't like period pieces. They don't want to, but the reason, Masterpiece has been on for 56 years is because people love it. People love watching it, right? And people across the racial divide, definitely.
Well, thank you, Sharon, for joining us again on Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters. We look forward to our next conversation. We don't know what that will be, but we'll come up with something.
Yes, thank you so much for having me again, and congratulations on all the work that you're doing.
Catch the Forsytes on the PBS drama series Masterpiece. Check local listings. You can also stream the series on PBS Passport, the PBS Masterpiece Prime Video channel, and for free for 14 days from broadcast on pbs.org/masterpiece. Contact your local PBS station to learn more about how to access additional Masterpiece dramas with PBS Passport.
Go to the webpage for this episode at michonnebostongroup.com/Boston Sisters to download this and other podcasts featuring Masterpiece dramas and conversations with series script consultant Sharon D. Johnson, including the #1 Sanditon Wrap-Up podcast, episode 32. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. You'll be notified about our annual Page to Screen podcast, where Michonne and I reveal our book list for summer reading, inspired by the 5th season of Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters.
Thank you for catching this episode of Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters. We hope you enjoyed our exploration of captivating historical films and series dramas. Find us on Instagram at Historical Drama Sisters and on Facebook at Historical Drama Boston Sisters.
We want to hear from you. What historical dramas are you watching? Share your favorites. We may feature them in a future episode. Don't forget to subscribe. Visit our website at michonnebostongroup.com/Boston Sisters and share the podcast with fellow historical drama enthusiasts.
Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters is brought to you by the Michonne Boston Group. The views and opinions expressed on Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters are those of the speakers and do not represent the positions or views of the Michonne Boston Group, its clients, or affiliates. This is Michonne Boston.
And this is Tequina Boston.
Thank you for listening.